the thing. Get the thing recording on that SSD drive because it's flying. Welcome to the PARAcast. I'm your host, Tomas the Boss Hernandez. That's right, 3 intros for 2 people because everybody. I got literally, Jared. I got a migraine.
Yeah, what a bitch.
I don't think I can do this today, Kenny. I can't make it, Steve.
Steve, I'm still drinking my Dylan Mulvaney beer.
I can't. I didn't even get an answer. Anyways, joining me tonight. He put his whole fist in the peanut butter. Just cause it's Robert Wyatt.
Can't tell me what to do. I do what I want. I tell you what, son of a bitch.
He just pulls it out, just starts looking at it. And he almost joined the Mile High Club, but when the balloon operator says no, he means no. It's Dave Blanton.
I mean, it's worth a shot. I mean, you miss every shot you don't take, right?
I mean, what's he gonna do?
That's what the Chinese think.
You know, that's the one thing about the balloon operator ride. You know, the balloon ride, you got like 2 hours or 3 hours to convince the person. You know, you can really.
Yeah, we almost got there, but not quite.
Not quite.
Not quite.
Maybe on the 17th, the balloon operator ride. Anyways, so we're here. We're here to give you the best show that we can possibly get you with as minimal effort as we're willing to put into it. Speaking about minimal effort, so I posted on Instagram, and Robert shared it, and some other people shared it, of a very timely photo of a Romeo 1 Pro leaving the slide of a Canic Rival S. And so there was some speculation, but I went out there last week, and I shot a match with this thing, and I did pretty well. I would have come in third in carry optics, which I would have been plenty happy with, but when you lose your optic in the middle of a stage and then keep shooting and then like think you can shoot things without sights and then plug 2 no shoots right in the face, takes the score down. It's just math, it's just science. And so I went there and I had a great match with it. I mean, it was one of those things where every time I was making ready, I had to get crap talked to me about shooting a heavy gun, and then I literally
all I'm saying, dude, is I mean, you for the past umpteen years have just shat all over anybody that has a gun that's not a service weapon. Why do you need a heavy gun? You suck. I'm better than you. And yet, well, yes, you are better than me.
You're still shooting the same gun as everybody else.
Yep.
You just got the pumpkin spice latte of competition guns.
Correct. So I sit there.
Doesn't mean it's not good though.
No, it is quite possibly. I have one negative comment about just how small the grip is. Besides that, it's a fantastic product, and I literally
think
if you put it in a small girl's hands, then it seems bigger.
Yeah, I just get a lot of fingers around that thing, but
Locke will fix it. I've talked to Blake about it. I was nearly to the point of sending him my gun. He's like, no, it's cool. I've got another line on one, but I mean, it's nearly the top of their list. I think they're working on it right now.
Yeah.
So show me in the picture. It's a complete wraparound grip.
It's the same profile side to side as the polymer gun, which is pretty skinny.
Okay.
The nice thing about it is they kind of recontoured the back of the grip, and the front of the grip is a little bit broader. It's not quite as like coney as the other one is. So it's better if you've got bigger hands. The Rival S works with your hands better than the polymer one does, but you still need the palm swell. It's missing a palm swell.
Yeah.
And that makes sense. It's kind of like we were talking about on the Patreon side with the MP 2.0, where it's funny how that hump in the back just makes all the difference in the world in some of those cases.
Yeah, I mean, if you have one hand on the gun, it feels fantastic. Excuse me.
He didn't hit. He's not even a professional, Robert. What is this amateur you're working with, ladies and gentlemen? That was the sound of Tom sneezing.
Sorry,
on
I don't have a.
Yeah, and I don't edit anything, but now I got to edit that out.
Oh, what? Yeah, like you're touching it.
I'm not editing squat.
But
y'all just gonna have to listen to the sound of Tom's lungs on the roll
which
there.
is mildly better than the constant clack 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 of the slides racking.
Hey, I've been dry firing this gun that I'm holding out of respect for the audio podcast listeners.
I really appreciate that.
So I had a Romeo 1 Pro laying around, and I really like the Romeo 1 Pro. I think it's a fantastic optic. And I was just like, how do I get this on there? And so I'm searching, and I literally find on Reddit some guy has a Romeo 1 Pro on top of the R06 plate that came with his rival. And I get my rival and I pull the R06 plate out and I'm like, fantastic. And I think that one's meant for the Romeo 3 Max, I think. Like that.
Yeah,
So,
with enough JB weld, you can get anything to work.
so it's pretty flat. So I set it on there and I put the two M4 screws in there that come with the Romeo 1. And like the first tip would have been like, hey, they only go like one rotation before they stop turning. And I was just like, but it's on there. So I had them Loctited. I had them down to 15 inch-pounds. And for pull out the gun, shoot the first stage is the classifier, get a master run on the classifier. Like literally, I was like, this thing is pretty awesome. Go there, shoot. I'm like, this thing points well. I like it. The recoil, it's very, the recoil almost seems slow on the thing. Like it seems like a little bit, it's like a flat, but it's kind of like you can definitely feel the steel moving around on the thing. It's pretty easy. The dot never leaves the window, but you definitely feel the ka-chunk, ka-chunk, ka-chunk. So going through there, trigger's amazing. The thing's a damn laser beam, points, hits exactly where I want. Then we get to like the 5th stage of the day. And I enter the box and bam, 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 bam. Hit a piece of steel, like bullet, like, you know, you have the dot, then you see the black mark exactly where the piece of steel gets hit. And then I put the dot on the other one, like, fire it. It's like, weird. And then I'm like, oh, my dot turned off. Move the gun around. Oh, there it is. Fire it again. Way off to the side. Fire it again. Fire it again. And then I'm like, I think something's like my grip's bad or the dot's flickering on and off. And then all of a sudden I go there and I'm like, I literally fire a shot and I see the optic kind of go boo boo. And I'm like, oh. And then I fire it and the optic turns sideways. And instead of just stopping myself and saving $27 on screws, I'm like, whatever. So I just kept shooting it, and then eventually the optic flew off. So what happened was,
At that point, Rob
Tell us what
Chavis
had
like
happened.
comes in out of the clouds and be like, ha ha ha! I've
Yeah.
seen this.
Brett Thomas should have been there. Then he could be like, I've seen it happen to somebody else. So what happened was with the screws is one of those backed out enough to cause the gun, since there's no recoil post, cause the gun to start going. And because there's not enough threads on the second one, that immediately caused that one to start backing out. And then that backed out and it flew off. So it wasn't a failure of SIG optics. It wasn't a failure of the SIG screws. It wasn't a failure of the mechanic plate. It was me forcing an optic onto a gun without the proper equipment on it. And so
That's what you get for listening to Reddit, buddy.
I know. So I picked
Next time, Tommy, I've got this bottle of Rockset. We'll make that stuff stay.
Rockset would need two surfaces that actually contact each other. I don't even think I had that on that whole setup. And so I go to Jared, and me and Jared had talked and agreed for the match. And so I traded him for a 2.5 Delta Point Pro, which I love the Delta Point Pro. And the deal was is he had it on a 45-degree T-Rex mount. And he's like, listen, I couldn't... He had tightened those T15s on so damn tight, he couldn't untighten them. And so he had stripped the top of the T15s out. And then he had taken a Dremel, and he had given a crucifix on one and another one so he could actually, you can see it on YouTube, I'm holding up, because he tried to cut slots back into those things. And he's
Wait a minute. Are you saying that Jared, who knew better and had experience with somebody doing something dumb with a Dremel tool to a firearm part, did the same thing?
Yeah, he went to cut it.
Oh
And so,
my gosh! I seriously, do cops just go to dumb Dremel school or something like that? Is that like a thing? Hey, welcome to the academy. Here's your Dremel tool. Here's your gun.
Trained him
Go
as
do
an
some really
armorer, man.
stupid
What do you
stuff.
want? You
Oh
made him
my
an
gosh.
armorer. He's got a mat that says armor on it. It's fine.
it's fine. So I literally, thank goodness, because I had that problem with that Beretta RDO when those first came out, where they gave you the hex screws and then gave you so much force you couldn't get them out. And so I bought that screw extractor kit. 5 minutes later, I'm pulling these two things out there, mounted on a plate that's actually meant for the thing. And gosh dang it, if they didn't do... When you pull the optic cover on the Rival S, you see how deep they cut it, and they cut around the firing pin chamber, the striker chamber. I mean, it's
brilliant.
This damn thing is so well freaking thought out. It is.
Yeah, it's almost like they got a pro shooter who knew what he was talking about to build a gun, and they actually
Yes.
like built what that pro shooter wanted to be built. Except for I think the pro shooter probably has a better optic on there.
Actually, he's running a Delta Point Pro 2.5.
Yeah, he likes Delta points too. Yeah.
Well, okay, he can't be perfect in everything.
I think
There's
he's
no
and
accounting
th-
for taste,
and then
Robert.
he's running the mechanic, the O2 mechanic, which we'll see. We'll see on those, but they seem to be doing all right. Anyways, that thing happened, and then yesterday I went out shooting with my friends and took a video of me accomplishing the goal of drawing and shooting at 7 yards, 2 shots in under a second from concealment.
Good job, man. That's awesome.
Ooh, that's pretty spicy, my man.
So the first one I got done was an 80 with a 19 split, and then the 3 I posted on Instagram I had a 101, but my fastest were 297s, which was a 78 draw and a like 18 split of the trigger. And so, yeah,
That's moving, man. Congratulations. That's really
Yeah,
solid.
you're up there with T-Rex arms and True Exodus now.
You can start your holster company now. You're good.
yeah,
Mhm.
I can start it. I'm pretty happy to be done with that. Like literally, the hardest thing was not the draw because my draw speed was pretty good. Was doing
Split.
exercises to split consistently low. So like if you luck out and get like a 7-8 draw, I mean that's one thing, but you can't fudge that up with a 22 split. And so I was able to do that. And one of the simplest things was, definitely keep this hand relaxed, but just the old piece of paper in the chamber, kind of keep the Glock slightly out of battery, and then literally like having a 2-second timer go off, and then trying to get as many presses as I could in that 2 seconds, and that pretty much transferred over and got me about 5/10 off my splits
Wow.
for
So
that.
not tens, hundredths, right?
500s. Excuse me, I
Yeah.
wasn't splitting AR8.
Tens would have been a
Tens
problem.
would be Jared's
AARP splits. And it was great because I can split the Glock a little bit faster and shoot the rival, but that's just gonna be a little bit of practice. But I was literally like, you do 7/8 from concealment, and then I put on my race gear and then try to like draw this thing out of that holster they give you and shoot it, and it's like, wow, a 9.9. Good job,
Yeah,
Tom.
the holster they give you is not amazing, and all of those aggressive serrations that work so good to cock the gun with catch the damn holster. So it's like, well, at least it came with a holster.
Yeah,
Well, on the plus side, I think you know a holster company between the two of you guys, so I'm sure you can find one.
yeah. I'm literally waiting for Precision Holsters to finish off their rival S model, which it has to be. I mean, it's a cool thing because it's a great firearm, but the fact that Canik now has 4 models that don't really jive in the same holster, even though they're pretty much the same gun in the SFX, the Mete, the Rival, and the Rival S. So it's like,
So they're taking a page out of the SIG playbook.
well,
Little
that's
tiny incremental changes and make you buy all brand new stuff.
yeah, they're making the incremental changes, but at least their changes are designated by whole new model sets
Yeah.
than the incremental sets, and each one. This is the one thing that kind of bugs me about buying this gun because I know in 3 years there's going to be a better model of this thing that's out. Like this will be fantastic and it'll work great, but there'll be a different model of this thing out, which will be.
But
even
realistically, what kind of life are you trying to get out of a competition gun? Like 3 years to me is pretty good. Like there's
Yep.
not a lot of people who are shooting the same gun 3 years later.
better. Yep, and
5 years. Same
yeah,
gun.
but how many of those guns?
No, it's the same. It's the same.
Oh.
It's the same gun.
Okay, same gun. Okay,
All
all right.
the
I put
practice.
I put an
match-
And you
Awesome.
haven't rotated it out of your match gun to become a practice gun?
No, I have 2, and I just keep running them.
Hmm.
I've got a third that has become my dry fire gun, and that's a new gun. But to be really honest with you, the 2 main guns, they're just so nicely broke in. I mean, it just runs so well. It's like, gosh, why do I want to start that all over
Then
again?
why do you keep buying new ones, Robert?
Because
You
I'm
only
dumb.
got 2 that
Honest-
you use.
honestly,
and one you use in
because
dry
I'm
fire
dumb.
now.
I'm just
Okay.
dumb that way.
I just wanted
somebody-
you to say it out loud, hear it in your own words.
I know, dude. I freely admit, ask Andrea. But it's like people come in, they're like, "Hey, I got this Shadow 2. I'm like, do you want to buy it, or do you know somebody?" I'm like, "Well, how much do you want for it? $800? Okay."
Yeah.
I mean,
It is.
I mean,
It is shockingly
sell it.
surprising how cheap those things have gotten recently.
Oh yeah.
oh yeah, and they're great guns. I mean, for competition and everything like that. The thing that I'm kind of wondering if CZ is going to be coming out with a Shadow 3. I mean, they could, but I just don't know what they're going to do so differently. I mean,
They're
it
still
doesn't.
printing money with it too. I like it's a
Yeah.
cash cow for them at this point. Like they gave it, the old college try and were able to figure something out to put an optic on there
Mm-hmm.
portally, and that's good enough. Why not just
Yeah.
keep making money?
Yeah.
And that's and I mean, it makes perfect sense. But
They did get well in front of the rest of the field when they released that pistol. So like we're just to the point now where people are passing them.
yeah,
And so, I mean, they could keep that model relevant for probably another 2 years before they have to do something to it. But I mean, that
That's
means
fair.
they'd have to start working on it right now.
And their
Right.
supply chain of what they're actually producing is far superior. You can go anywhere and find a Shadow 2. Like it's kind of like it's the only heavy frame competition gun. You can go into any gun store and it's immediately on there. Maybe the P320 Legion you might see in there. The Max might be a little bit harder to find, but like you go on gun.deals and refresh, you can find a million different Shadow 2s. Max is a little bit harder. Canics, Rival S's, super hard to find. Walthers, so
Is
I mean,
It's because
Tanfolio?
all of the dentists and lawyers already have Shadow 2s now. So,
yeah, the Tanfo is a little bit harder too because I thought about grabbing one of those, and that one is still pretty hard to deal. It's not like you can find like a great deal on those like you can on the Shadow 2s.
No, but I tell you what, I would rather have the stock 2 OR than I would rather have the Shadow 2. Shadow 2 is nice. It's just that the stock 2 is nicer in a way that like you can't make the CZ frame slide and barrel do what the stock 2 does. Like it's just a little bit more accurate, but the shape of the frame, if your hands, if you're a size LXL glove, you're gonna get along better with the stock 2 frame.
Yeah.
I
It's,
still kind of
perfect.
want that the small frame version, like what Yeeman has, but I
don't
guess
even
you can't
think
find
those-
those at all.
I don't
think
even
you can
think
get those
those
in the
are
United States.
around anymore. I mean that it's pretty interesting. Is like the kind of new stuff that Tanfo's put out. I think I sent Dave a message. Just like I was looking around on their website. I see the stock
Polymer 3.
the
Yeah.
stock 3. They make a polymer framed Tanfo stock 3. The sights look really good for an iron gun, and you're sitting there looking at this, just like, why the hell am I not seeing more and more people pimp this thing? It is like their version of like a PO9,
Yeah.
the full size
Yeah.
PO9, and it's just like I would have that over a PO9. That thing looks
Isn't
pretty awesome.
isn't it kind of the craziest thing? And I mean, Dave, you talked about this like a long time ago. How we've gotten to a point where you walk into a gun store and you see a firearm that isn't optic ready, and you almost just like disregard it. Like, why would I want to buy anything that I can't put a dot on now?
Like even
And
if you don't want the dot, like you might in the future. Like
Well,
yeah,
it's literally resale value too. You look at it, you're just like, I won't be able to sell this thing if I can't get a dot. Now, most of these things have a dot, and your thing is like, what can I mount on the frame of it? Because some people are still like, I don't know what's up with people putting vortex footprints on slides
ooh.
and putting. I understand the mechanic with being so narrow that they have to put the RMS footprint
Right.
on it, but I mean it's now you're literally going to like who's got the best plates and are they in there? Tanfo, you got that universal plate that seems to go on there. M&P, Glock, you're basically Canic, you got all the plates, and then you're fighting with the guys who don't have any plates or people like Beretta who can't do a good plate. Anyways, Robert,
I shot 2 matches. Shot the indoor match. Shot the Slipsa match. I got to be the range master for the first time at Slipsa, and that was interesting. That was fun. I have to say I have a lot more respect for what Dave Moore has to go through, because you never really get back into, so you'll be on a stage. Well, our very first stage, I'm like the shooter, and guy comes up and says, we need you to come over here and talk. I'm like, all right, fine. Let me shoot my stage. So I shoot it, and not well.
yeah,
And then I'm like, okay. So I run over, I help this guy out. I come back and we go to our next stage, and then somebody's like, hey, we need a gun swap. So I run away, come back, and then we had 3 DQs on the day. And that was stressful in a way that I never, because, and this was really interesting because you're trying really hard to, oh, that's interesting, Dave. You're trying really hard to adjudicate this DQ, and so you're talking to the RO who made the call, and I've always had this. I basically I'm like, I'm gonna try and give the RO a way out. Tell me what you saw. Where were you in the position to see this thing completely? Are you really sure that you saw what you think you saw? That kind of thing, stuff like that. Basically, to give the RO the ability to say, well, I think this is what it was, because then at that point we can keep the person in the match, and we can just say, okay, no problem, let's just do a reshoot. But we had three. Like, we had one guy who turned around and pointed a gun at the offside RO, and it's like, yeah, but
right.
you ain't coming back from that. And then
He's pretty sure he saw you break the 180.
yeah, he's like, I
Pretty sure.
see that you were shooting gold dots. You don't
Yeah.
need to shoot that at this match. But yeah, just 180 breaks, and it was ironically they were all on the classifier, and so
As a turn and draw.
no, it was, I cannot remember. It was like 1808 or something like that. Basically, you start in box A, and you shoot one shot on each, and then you run diagonal up to the right,
Yeah.
and you shoot there, and then you start there again, shoot the targets, and then reloading, run all the way back, and not being a dick, right-handers can't reload against themselves. It's something that they have to work on a lot more than lefties who are always doing it, and that's where it all came from. They just they couldn't.
So
they
the
couldn't
gun was on
figure-
their left as they were retreating up range. Is that what you're saying?
Say that again.
The gun was on their left as they were going up range.
Yeah, so they were on the right side of the bay, and they're running diagonal up range left.
Oh yeah, that's a tough reload on that one.
That's a tough reload for a righty. And I mean, if I had designed that stage, in fact, I do this at my indoor matches all the time. I actually do a very similar kind of stage just for a standards and something fun. I will actually build that stage exactly opposite, just to help the right-handed shooters out, because I know mine's more of an introduction match, so you don't want to burn those guys out. But it's just not something that righties are forced to practice as much. Is that a fair way of saying that? I think that's okay.
Yeah, I've shot that classifier twice, and I've argued with myself twice as to, like, do you just do the reload and then run, or do you just grab the mag and run and get to the box as you're presenting, seat it, and that's the way I ultimately ended up doing it, because the angle that you have to run, because like you can't square your shoulders in the direction that you want to run. Like, it's impossible. It's dangerous. So it is basically testing your ability to not disqualify yourself. It's not something that you can, burn it down on as a right-handed shooter necessarily.
Right. And that stage, I had a horrible one. For the first time in, I'm not kidding you, I bet you it's probably been 2 years. I had a high primer that I missed in my my sword. It's strange because I'm usually so good about that, and I missed one. It was the first time forever.
I had a malfunction with this thing, and I literally load the gun. It's a table start, load, make ready, bring it up, pull the trigger, click, and I'm just like, oh, and I pull it out. Robert's like, it's probably like a high primer, and I was like, no, I case gauged him. I think it's a high primer. I talked to Kevin, and he goes, does that have a light striker spring in it? Because I'm using someone else's slide, because just in case you didn't know, my optic came off mine. And he goes like, yeah, it's a light primer. It's a light striker spring. And because I use Glock striker springs, was Kevin what was talking. Anyway, W74 guy, let's check him out. But light, like Glock style striker springs in there. And it was a light one. And Aaron Lawson was already telling me, he's like, yeah, CCI primer, sometimes you might get light strikes. And so I have the CCI primer and the light striker spring. So
we had a really interesting target. Dirk Hopkins set up a stage where it was a table start stage, and you start standing in a box, pick up the gun, and from this position only, you shoot it was a target at 25 yards all the way at the end of the bay, but you had to shoot through the hole of a steel IPSC, a steel USPSA, still USPSA target. And so they just cut a hole out of it. And I got there in the morning, and I was looking at it, and I'm like, and in my brain, I'm like, I don't think this is really a great target for new shooters.
How far away is the steel?
25 yards.
The steel that you're shooting through.
It's right there.
Okay.
Maybe a foot, 18 inches.
Okay.
And so you had to shoot through this to actually hit the A zone, and you would only hit the A zone. And like, on one side of me, I'm like, this is really not a good thing. We're going to burn out the new shooters really badly on this, and it's just going to be tough. And so actually in my new shooter orientation that we do, I actually told them, because we were on that stage, and I'm like, look, this is the target. This is what's happening. I want you to put 4 really good shots onto this thing best you can, and then leave, because I don't want you guys going Winchester or running out of bullets. And but when we actually got to the stage and we shot it, I found something very interesting, which is because that steel was there, it was a very self-evident and correcting problem. If you shot the steel, it was very obvious, dang, and it made it made the puff of the impact, so that when you didn't have that, you knew you had made the shot. And the stage actually flowed really, really well, to the point I'm like, okay, this was really clever. And so I told Dirk, this was really well done. And at our last stage, stage 6 or stage 5, we had a tuxedo out at roughly about the same distance, and functionally it was the same exact target, except for you didn't have the self-correcting sound of you screwing up. And it was such an interesting observation on how that actually worked. It was really, really well done. And I was talking to Blake, and we were like, man, I don't think this is a good target. And I'm like, and we kind of came to the conclusion of, well, let's let it run. This is a local, and if it works, great. And if it doesn't, great, because we're going to learn lessons from this.
Yep.
And we'll learn things that can and can't work. But at a local, we can absorb that sort of thing, and that's just fine. And so,
good learning.
yeah,
I saw that you had a good match too.
I it was okay. It was okay. I had fun. There's this guy. It was funny. There's this guy that showed up, and he's like, "Hey, could I swap squads?" And I was like helping with all the pads and stuff like that. And I'm like, "Yeah, just give me a second. Let me get all this stuff squared away." He's like, "If it doesn't work, that's fine." I'm like, "Hey, no worries, no, figure it out." And so I get it all done. I turn around. I'm like, "So tell me your name." And it was really weird, because I'm looking at him, I'm talking to him, and like one eye's looking at me, the other eye's looking kind of like off kilter, and I'm like, that's a little bit strange. And he's like, "Mike." I'm like, "Okay." And it's like, Panone. And I'm like, "You're famous, right?" But yeah, I guess he showed up to the match, and so it's pretty cool. He was very nice in what I had spoke to him. I don't know him from Adam, honestly. I know that he's a very famous shooter in the
instructor,
tactical world and stuff like that. And so that was kind of fun to have, somebody relatively famous show up.
Awesome. Now it's time for the show where Dave Blanton plays Look How Much Better I Am. Dave Blanton, show and tell.
That's right.
Non-poverty
the Dave Blanton Power Hour.
Well, here it is, just for you, Koski. This is we're missing you today. We just want you to know that.
I'm
just going to deliver. Yeah, I'm going to deliver a 1-hour monologue just for you, buddy. So I've got a couple. Well, first, I want to tell you this week in shooting is technically 2 weeks ago. So I went to an indoor IDPA match, and I was wearing jeans because it's indoor, and usually indoor match is a little bit chilly. It's like, cool. We get there, and there are 3 bays that they have this match on. 2 out of 3 of the bays, the condenser's down. It's not cooling at all. And it was a warm day. It was a very warm early spring day here in Texas. So it was like basically your wife's hair dryer on like the low setting. That's what it was like, just sitting in the bay.
Good thing
so I
jeans
shoot one
breathe
stage
so well.
with the jeans down. I'm like, okay, this isn't working. So I pulled my jeans up and I graduate to man pre level. Like, awesome. And I'm still like, I'm starting to sweat really bad in like my leg pit area, like behind the knee. And I was like, well, I just got this fancy new pocket knife, and these are my clapped out jeans that my wife hates. So I was like, I'll just make them into jorts. So I whipped out my new pocket knife, figured out where the pockets were on my pants, and then cut just below that. So like my pockets didn't quite hang out, but it was pretty close. So that was improvising, adapting, and overcoming. And that weekend was Mother's Day weekend, and my wife actually on Mother's Day encouraged me to shoot the Texas State IDPA Championship, which I was able to get into, which led to an interesting exercise, because it's like, well, I've got all these guns, like what do I shoot in IDPA now, because it changed all the rules.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm trying to do this thing with open where I plays real well at nationals this year, so I'm just going to stick with a 2011 pattern gun just so I don't like screw up all the training I've been doing. So it was basically down to the Masterpiece Arms DS9, Staccato P, or what was the other one? This Alchemy custom weaponry gun that I have here. And of all of them, I think the polymer guns actually work better with 9 miner guns. I know the jam right now is to get the steel frame and aluminum grips, but it's just nicer to have that squishy plastic grip that soaks up the recoil, because the guns are still heavy enough where you can point them easily. The niceness of shooting polymer, but more importantly, because IDPA is a reload game, what I found with the DS9 is you get a little bit of mag binding. Like the grip is well done, but there's still just that steel on aluminum bit of binding. And with the plastic grips, like if it fits, it ships. So for a game like IDPA, where the reload's a mega part of the game, I was like, well, obviously the polymer gun's going to be the one that I end up needing to use. But that said, the show and tell for the people looking at YouTube first, this is the Alchemy Custom Weaponry Quantico High Cap, which is a gussied up. It's like if it's like a resto mod, I guess you'd call it, in like the car world, where it's like it looks like a 5-inch slab side 1911, but it's a 2011 frame, but it has like the old STI double diamond like grip module looking thing. Yeah. And it's honestly, it's nicer than the new STI grip modules. It has more traction. So it's pretty awesome. It is a bushing barrel gun. I'm not going to make all the noise racking it, but the slide to frame fit is near Nighthawk custom levels, and they only charge like $3,800 for these guns. So it's pretty reasonable considering it is a gunsmith gun, and it's like a sister company to Cabot Arms. So Alchemy Custom Weaponry, it's a pretty awesome gun. I wish it was a bull barrel and not a bushing barrel, but even with it's a DLC coded bushing, so that's kind of cool, and it has a nice target crown on it.
Is that a GI guide rod in that thing?
It has a short guide rod, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is the spirit of an old 1911 that's been gussied up. So the other item for show and tell is the new Shadow Systems CR920P, which is their Glock 48 sized gun that comes with a compensator from the factory. Shot this guy today. I mean, it shoots like a small gun. If you're shooting a stout load, it hits you in the palm and lets you know it's a stout load, but it doesn't flip a lot. So it's very functional. But it's tough to make like a 20-ounce gun really pleasant to shoot, and it does about as good a job as you can do
with street ammo and a comp.
Well, I shot with I had 5 different hollow points with me today shooting with it. So I shot like a 115 critical defense, 124 critical duty, 135 plus P critical duty, 147 critical defense, and the solid jacketed hollow point from Supervel, the 115 plus P. And the lighter loads with more gas seemed to make the gun shoot nicer. Although the 135 wasn't that terrible to shoot out of that thing, actually, surprisingly. But this is the thing that I think will be of most interest to people, because this is I don't remember. I think they call it like the Sentinel or something like that. But it is a proper full-size gas pedal that fits. They make them for 2011s and they make them for P320s. It's from Odin Armory, I think it's Odin something.
It's not Odin Works.
Maybe it's Odin Works. I feel really bad. It's not written on the thing, and the packaging's not right in front of me. It's a yellow, like Thor-looking dude. It's Odin. There's so many armories and weaponries in my life right now that it's tough to keep track. But I'll there'll be a link in the show notes to what it is. But it's a folding thumb rest. So it actually folds flat on the gun, so you can actually use like Comp Tac or Blade Tech mounting holsters, and it folds in that pocket where the holster mounts. And when you draw it, it pops out. But the thing is, it's actually big enough to be functional. Like, my big criticism of all the gas pedals on the guns is they're too small to be really useful. This is just like an open gun thumb rest, exactly where you'd want it to be, with awesome like knurling on the, let's see if I can get the lighting right.
That's
with
cool.
Awesome knurling on it. So it's highly functional, and it folds flat. So if you're they even make a left-handed version, I believe. So I wonder
how they do that, because usually the slide assembly
it bolts onto this side.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So they're probably giving you a custom slide assembly.
Yeah.
Slide
this side is basically
and then it's
flat,
screw threaded in.
Side, and you bolt that on. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But they've got like a set screw so that the takedown lever won't rotate. Like, you have to back out this set screw right here before you can make the gun come apart. So it's pretty well thought out. And it's actually really cool. But it makes me like think about the question, like, what's next for our guns? Like, the problem with this though, this thing is like $170 or $180. It's very functional. It's very well made. It's got the great coating on it and everything like that. But when you get into how, like, it's got like a little torsion spring in there, all that kind of stuff. Like it's very well machined, very precise. So it's precision machining money on that. But it makes me wonder, like, is that maybe the next hill that we're going to climb with this, where the guns are coming from the factory with like pop out thumb rests or something like that? Maybe that's where we go. Maybe it's not. But I'm pulling up right now so I get the company name right.
Odin Armory is the name.
Odin Armory. Okay, so Tom's one step ahead of me. He is the hardest working man in show business, ladies and gentlemen. So
yeah, I see. I mean, the gas pedals are interesting to me because they're different. People have different opinions on the validity of them. I know if you talk to Charlie, he's like, no, I don't think there's value in them. But Christian Sailor's like, no, these are absolutely valuable. And I personally, my thumbs are so far off the gun that I don't find any value in it, but I do it because I have a tendency to want to steer the gun, and that's a training issue. I totally understand that, but
I use it as an anchor point to basically allow me to put more strength through these fingers. Like it's just another anchor point on the gun. I'm not like trying to push through the pedal. I'm just bearing down on it so I can pull back harder.
Okay,
it's kind of how I use it. And it does make the gun return to zero faster, like 100% it does. So when I shot this, I was like, oh wow, this thing this works nice. But the 2011 one's like $190 because it's a big honking boy. It's really, really cool, but
it's so funny that you have companies that are literally they're trying to figure out ways to get these gas pedals on this pretty cool. That's folding. You can put it on a holster, and then you have companies that literally put holes on the gun now for gas pedals in the future. Troy it's like this thing has gas pedal holes. The Canic Rival S already its own slot for it in the future.
Yeah. So that concludes the power hour of show and tell and booty short wearing.
Well, if you want to look good in
booty
your
shorts, call up Dave.
Patreon, $50 subscribers, he'll catch up a pair of costumes.
That only gets you feet pics, man. You got to go a higher tier for that.
If you need something to hold up your jorts, head on over to Dominate Defense. Get a Mach 1 speed belt. You can use that thing to look good and be running great. I talked to Jason over there, and I sent him my new waist size because I need I had to go back and play like 2021 Tom Nelson shooting or 2020 Tom Nelson shooting, and I had my Shooter's Connection, still a great belt, my Safari Land, and then my holster that came in the box. And I was just like, I want my stuff. I want my precision holster, and I want my damn Dominate Defense belt because it's way better. Check them out. DominateDefense.com. Use promo code PARA10. Save 10% off. Also, check out Precision Holsters. Their fast holster and their competition gear. Best stuff. Absolutely fantastic pieces of equipment. Check them out. Use the same promo code PARA10. And Rune Tactical. Get some springs. Get an extra round in that magazine. There's nothing more frustrating when I only hold 22 currently in my Canic and Robert doesn't do a reload and shoots to 25. So
yeah, yesterday there was a guy who was shooting a CZ, and I went through, and I shot the stage. He's like, "How did you not reload?" I'm like, "Well, I have Rune followers." He's like, "Oh, I don't." and I'm like, "You want to borrow my magazine? It's really gonna help." He's like, "No, I'll be fine. It's only a 24 round stage." He goes, he shoots, and he goes 1, 2, 3, and I'm like, "He's in trouble."
Yep. That's the only time
to the last target, and he's like, "Oh shit!"
When Robert thinks he's got an infinite ammo code, and then he makes up like 4 shots, then he gets to the end, he's like, "What? I'm out of bullets. How could I?"
How is that possible?
Check him out, Rune
I've
Tactical.
had that problem on my open gun before too. It's pesky.
I thought what is this, a 26 round stage? What I made up 4 shots. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I should probably
checks
load.
out.
Well,
I will say I have a Dominate Defense inner belt because I use a Lynx outer belt with a ratchet, and their little like slip past itself system for the inner belt works really, really well. It's a nice thing to have if you've got a ratchet on your Lynx belt.
Yeah, the other thing too is then they're perfect carry belts. Don't tell Jason I told you this, but Buy the inner belt. You get to wear it as a carry belt.
I
That's
totally
me.
do that.
And if you're a Patreon fan, you just saw Tom's stomach, baby. Oh yeah.
Hey, you can see it on Instagram while I'm trying to split them triggers. Drawing 2 shots. Also, check out W74 Guide Rods, and he's got stuff for all your stuff. You can make your gun heavier. When your Canic rival isn't heavy enough, you check out W74.
When you finally stop living in denial and decide to get yourself a real gun,
I am not going to do anything to this gun for a long time. And the other thing is, I don't really think it needs anything else besides a fatter palm swell.
Since you got the palm swell, you may as well get a heavier guide rod.
I'm gonna get those gigantic lock ones that have the built-in magazine well, that just really get this thing. Then I gotta offset it. I gotta get tungsten.
And then of course you gotta get a root follower on it. And since you're there anyway, you should get some tungsten. And I mean, yeah. See, Tommy, welcome to the party. It's a never-ending curse that you can't stop monkeying with a gun.
Get it to 59 ounces. Anyway, speaking about never-ending curses, your questions. Head on over to Telegram, and we can ask and then answer, and then do whatever we want with those. Robert, go.
From Mr. Seabass, did Tom Nelson stop eating Jack in the Box tacos? He's looking especially slim in his sub-second AIWB post.
I am slim.
Yeah, it's the tapeworm.
Bad news. Bad news is
from Jack in the
Explosive
Box.
diarrhea for a week, ladies and gentlemen. Lose some weight.
It's literally like no greater curse than to be like the thinnest you've ever been in your life, and then Jack in a Box, your favorite place to eat, goes, guess what, kids? We're opening 6 locations in the Salt Lake City Valley. And you're like, you sons of bitches. You weren't even supposed to cross the border because we didn't have Jack in a Box up here. So how can I get fat if there's no Jack in a Box? And then I get thin. And then they're like, we've come to serve. Yes, two tacos for $1. Please, chow down. And like, I can put down 12 of those things and feel great. So it's not good times. Temptation. I gotta overcome it. Not like David and what's your bucket in the Bible. I gotta push that taco away.
From Alex Mansfield, will Robert decide to go join his real family and shoot Area 5? Well, since I'm pissed off at USPSA and their nationals thing, yeah, I'd like to do that. Let me see if I can arrange flights. That'd be something fun to shoot.
Are they doing?
Why are you crying about nationals, Robert?
Because I didn't get in.
Oh yeah, that would make me cry too.
No,
my match opens up next week. I think a week from today is when Open Reg for Race Gun Nationals starts, or whatever they're calling it this year.
That open PCC,
whatever it is.
Is that what they're doing? I don't know why. I think that's what it is. I don't know why they actually combine
the one true nationals for the one true division is what it is.
Well, yeah, on the plus side, since they're running it, you can be guaranteed a subcaliber nationals put on by USPSA, because if USPSA and the 4 things that they really need to do well per the bylaws, if they do anything well, it's not nationals.
I thought it was just third-hand sexual harassment charges.
It could
spicy
be that.
take. Listen to that.
Yeah.
I would Open Nationals, nothing like this is like the 2 different mindsets in Open. Like the people who bring brass to open shooters who bring ammunition to like a lost brass match. Do they bring the premium Starline stuff that they spent a bunch of money on, knowing that they're going to lose it because their match performance is so important, or do they bring the old stuff that they have because it's lost brass?
Well,
I don't think most of them really think about it.
Well, I was talking to somebody, and they're like, if it's 38 Super, no, it was Kenny. I mean, 38 Super's got such a long life on it compared to like 9mm that you could shoot it for a long time with the reloads and then take it to nationals and leave it there and not feel bad about it. 9 Major, you probably want
You're
to
leaving
take
it all on
stuff.
the ground. Don't pick up any brass. You're buying it. If you're shooting a 9 Major gun, don't pick up brass. Just buy it. It's not worth doing.
The amount of 9 Major brass I have picked up and mixed up with my own brass now that ammunition I make that doesn't pass chamber check now has gone up. I mean, it used to be like maybe I'd have one that would pop out in every like 300 rounds, and now I'm like 2 per 100 now, just because of the prevalence of of 9 Major being shot.
I've gotten to the point where
I blew up an open gun twice through saving money on brass and picking up clapped out brass, and so
Yeah.
it's just not. Spend your 3.5 to 5 cents or whatever it is, and buy once fired roll size deprimed brass, and laugh at all the people who are picking up super comp brass and think they're better than you.
I've just gotten to the point with the indoor match. I know that stuff is generally like minor 9mm.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm just gonna deal with this because you're starting to see a lot more of that open stuff, and I'm like, I don't want to mess with that.
No,
I mean,
no, don't reload
anytime you've
9
ever,
major blasts.
anytime you've ever seen what that stuff does to a gun when it blows out, it's like, no, not worth it.
Yeah, literally, like you do your case gauging, take it out and pull it. Pull
Yeah.
it. I just pull it, knock the primer out, and throw that piece of brass away. It's not worth the risk.
Yeah. From Eric Sayo, now that Steve barely shoots, what's he going to do with the 55-gallon drum full of range pickup ammo before the weight of it all blows a hole through the floor of his loading room?
I would say he would. That's just like you just get like some sandwich bags, and you hand them out at like the next Christmas party. You just like, here you go, here you go. I would take it. I love freaking junk ammo. Like I find ammunition on the
Just
ground.
don't shoot the hollow points. If it's hollow point, it's not worth shooting. It'll give your gun a tummy ache.
Yeah. I used to pick that stuff up, and eventually it's just like, why am I doing this? And so
because one day you're like, I have no time. You knock it out, and then you go have like a 500 round range session, and you're like, oh, well, back in the day, it used to be literally what 2 cents a round to do that, and it's probably like 4 cents a round to sit there and do it just by the powder. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm waiting for Double Alpha to come up with like a poor man's version. You know, they have like their case sorter, and then like you just need to pull in a bunch of like ghetto bullets, and it'll sort it out between 115, 124, 135, and 147. That would be the ultimate.
Yeah, I
Cheapskate
just got to the point. I pulled. I think one time I must have pulled like 500-600 of them, and that was the point where like I'm never doing this again. But I kept picking it up, and eventually I was just like, screw this. I threw it all into a 5-gallon bucket and poured water into it, let it sit for basically the entire winter, and then threw it all away. Probably shouldn't have, but I did anyway.
I would literally keep it and just shove it all through that M&P. You get a $400 gun, you got a cheap, you got free ammo, just blast it.
Yeah. From Chris Meinhardt, do you guys figure out new load data when you change to a different primer manufacturer and/or type, match primers to regular, Magnum, etc.?
I do.
I'll jump in. That is the open shooter where that really matters a lot. No, I load my new primers and I go to the range with my chrono and I make sure it still makes major. And if I'm good, we're good. If it doesn't, then I goose another 0.2 of a grain and call it good.
How much do you notice it make much of a difference?
No, it doesn't. Well, that's not true. There is some. I mean, I'm using small rifle primers right now because my gun is set up in a way that it can set them off. It doesn't really matter. And it didn't like add velocity or anything. It might have added like 10 or 20 foot per second or something like that. But it was enough to where it would like, I don't know, the biggest using low quality primers, I would actually notice velocity drops. Like after I kind of got my process dialed in because loading open ammunition, like what minor shooters don't realize is you're trash at reloading ammunition. Like you have to take it to a much higher degree to shoot open. Like my ammo that I used to make for years was garbage compared to what I'm making now because my process is just so much more dialed in and how I run the press and all that kind of crap.
Yeah, 100%. I can totally agree with that. I actually did that this week where I had a whole bunch of just random primers, random bullets. I mean, they're all like 135 grain, and I'm just like, F it. And I just like threw it in there. I just loaded it all up and I went and shot the indoor match. Then there was no difference. There wasn't.
You don't
can't.
feel
it's minor
difference.
ammo. You just can't. I mean, the distances are so short. It's just, you're not going to see it.
There is some primers that are inconsistent, and I don't know what the metric is, but when I got to the point where I knew my powder measure was good and it was dropping very consistently, and I would get like a 30 or 40 foot per second drop with a major pill, and I had ruled out everything but the primers at that point. I can't remember what primers. It was one of the off brands that started showing up during COVID.
Oh, yeah, that was all that stuff that was like, I think the Biden administration outlawed the Russian Tula stuff, and so they started sending it to Bolivia and all these weird countries, and so
Yeah.
it's basically toolless, just coming in from somewhere else.
And I did see more inconsistency in my velocities with that stuff, but going from
Okay.
like a CCI to a Winchester to a whatever, like Federal, that didn't really make a difference.
Yeah, you might see a difference in a Magnum primer switching back. Like if I had ammo that I had was like Winchester Magnum small pistol primers, then I'd shoot some Federals, and I would see probably three drop in the power factor, but it depends on how well you're playing to the power factor floor. And then there's a lot of us who like basically make a lot of our loading in the winter and chrono our ammunition in the winter, and then a lot of our major matches are in the summer. And so that change in that primer and the change in the temperature in which you're shooting, if you're playing with just a 5,000 over, you can, depending on the variances, you can kind of lose that or gain, depending on what you're doing. So that's one of the things to sit there and be careful of. Like 135 power factor to 140 power factor is generally what I'm making with my 115 grain full metal jacket bullets.
And I load to 174 ish because 2 years ago at Race Gun, I was loading to like 168, and it was a late October nationals, and it was cold in the morning, like really cold. And we started on chrono, and I was using reverse temperature sensitive, or it would drop whatever you call it when it goes slower in the cold. And so like my first shot with a cold bore shot was like 163. I'm like, ruh-roh. And then
This
after
match just got
the
expensive.
the next three shots were good, and they were all like, but they were only like 165.8 to 166. I was like, you know what? We're not doing this again. So I was just like, the gun can take it. That's what we're loading to now.
Yeah.
So
I think every new reloader in USPSA probably goes through that game of how close can I get to the minimum power floor before somebody kind of dope slaps them and is like, this is not helping you, and they wise up and they're like, okay, we're gonna get this thing to somewhere reasonable, and they're like, okay, well, the nicest thing that people can do would be like, take a 120, 125 and a 130 and then shoot and be like, can you tell the difference? No. Good. Go to 130.
yeah, that falls into the play stupid games rule
100%.
of thinking. It's not worth messing with.
Yeah. Let's see. That was our last question.
Awesome, good. I'm tired of these two people. Thanks for joining us, listening and downloading and subscribing. Check out Dave Blanton. You might know him as the Humble Marksman on YouTube, and you can check out his podcast.
Kind of he's got a little known podcast.
Yeah, he's got the Arrogant Marksman podcast. You can check that out. And as a $10 member of Dave's Patreon, it is well worth it to have some of Dave's expertise on breaking down one stage for you a month. So you can check that out. It's I find it a profitable exchange with Mr. Blanton. So do all that stuff, and then you only get to be jealous because he's handling guns you'll never be able to handle, nor will you be able to afford.
Do you get sensual dry fire though with it? For $15, do I get Danny Minter to show up and like file an incident report against me? Because that'd be fun.
Well, yeah. What I would like is just a patron behind the paywall of what dry humping actually is. Anyways, thanks for downloading, subscribing. For Robert Wyatt and Dave Blanton, I'm Tom Nelson, bidding you peace, love, and souls. We depart into the open waters of the Sea of Life on a little tugboat we like to call the PARAcast.
Guys, I got a migraine. I can't be on the podcast
Oh,
anymore.
he's got to call
poor
it quits.
baby.
He got to call it quits. He don't know what.
I gotta go hunt a turkey. Good night, everybody.